We've had a few glitches all the way around this.
Going down slowly, I fell. I'm having a bad day. I didn't realize it at the time.
That was a rough day. Okay, you know what? Don't worry about that.
Yeah, she's showing me.
Where's Doug and Mary? She showed you how to do that. I'm not talking about something. Yeah, just picking up on the city books. I got one, so that's why I wanted to make sure you're still.
Pass through the subcommittee.
That's a short-term rental one, correct? Yeah. I just need to.
Passed out of committee, I guess, is what they.
We'll go check. Where is it? They're trying to abolish
Real small tree.
the entire state, not just us.
Take away local control.
We had a big short snow ice storm several years ago.
How we doing?
All right, go on.
Is,
I got 5:30.
Well, I haven't heard from Jerry. I did hear.
yeah, I did that. Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Thanks to everyone for coming. I want to go a little bit out of order today because we had a couple folks in. One of the discussion items is about the Veterans Wall of Honor. We had a couple people here, and I thought the whole agenda might take a while, so I thought maybe we better do that right away so they don't have to stay through the whole thing. I was the one who asked to put this on the agenda, and the Veterans Wall of Honor group has been looking for entities to take over the Wall of Honor. And in one of the entities they were particularly interested in was the city of Bella Vista. So I just wanted to bring this up to you folks, give you some time to digest it. I have enlisted Doug Tapp to help me. We've met with them a couple times. I've met with Tom Judson. The POA does a number of things to help out with the Veterans Wall, mostly lawn mowing, and they do some stuff having to do with the water and the electricity. In fact, they covered $6,500 of bills, and Doug and I are in the process of investigating the Veterans Wall, and their annual bills, not counting the things POA does, are about $15,000. They take in some contributions, and you may be familiar with it, that the bricks on the wall are sold to people, and normally to put some relative of theirs who was in the military on there. It's really a pretty impressive site, and they have some substantial expansion plans, I guess I would say, and they're looking for help with that. Basically, it's a group that's getting, well, the way they characterize it, smaller and older, and because they're interested in the long term, the longevity of the site, it makes sense to be under the control of somebody who would be there a long time, like a city. And they would continue to be involved with it and to help with it on an ongoing basis. So I just wanted to give you a little background on that, bring this up to people. They're talking about transferring ownership, the deed to the property, but obviously in exchange they want, would want a commitment by us that we would take care of it, keep it up, and also work on expansion, obviously, on an ongoing basis. So, as I said, I have had some discussions with Tom Judson, and he indicated they're willing to continue to help and do some of the things they do. 'Cause we don't have, as you may have noticed, we don't have a full-fledged parks department. So maybe we're not well positioned to mow the lawn, that kind of thing. So he has indicated a willingness to continue to help with that aspect of it. And as I said, Doug and I are in the process of studying it, and you know, I think it's a worthwhile activity, and I think a lot of the veterans and the people of Bella Vista, I think quite a lot of it. And it is in Bella Vista's city limits at the present time, and I'd like it to stay that way, frankly. So, Jim?
Do the veterans hold title to that property?
Yeah, the Veterans Wall of Honor organization has title right now. Yeah.
Okay, because I was on the committee way back that was looking into like cemetery, animal control, library and that. And some of the reasons why we didn't pick up those things, even though they were normally city operations, is because the entity didn't own the ground. So if something would happen to the building and or whatever we would have done would be lost. If these guys, you have title to the property, then I don't have any problem, you know, helping them at all. And even with the cemetery, which does not own their property, we have helped in the past with some heavy equipment with trees and digging some holes and other stuff. So we worked around that a little bit. But yeah, if they own the property where it sits, then I don't have any problem, you know, going ahead and helping them out.
Do you have an idea of like timeline of the expansion and the cost of the expansion?
Well, the type of projections they had were, I guess I'm not sure how accurate the number, I would characterize them as relatively accurate. It's a pretty ambitious expansion plan, and they were talking like $1.5 million. So I'm thinking in terms of getting contributions for that.
So not out of city funds, but.
And it's not a timing type thing. I don't know if you're familiar, you're probably familiar with the wall the way it is now, how it's kind of in sections, the part that's done. Well, one of the beauties of that type of system they have set up, they're basically adding more sections like that, is you can do it a little at a time. You know what I mean? You can have a fairly substantial expansion, but also be fairly gradual. So
the idea of funding that would be through donations and contributions, but not through city funds?
that's what I was thinking, but the city funds part, that's why we were trying to explore what was the cost, the ongoing cost, to just, keeping on top of it and whatnot. Even with the POA doing the things they were doing, they have some folks that spend a fair amount of time, just kind of keeping track of things. We went out there and looked at the site, and it's more than 2 acres. It's pretty substantial. And the part that's already done actually is pretty substantial. But the expansion plans they showed me, I would characterize as being, I thought it would be another section like what they have. It's actually even more than that. So, but like I said, it's not a thing that, oh my gosh, we have to get this done in 2 years or whatever. And we do have a couple people here from the Veterans Wall of Honor, if you'd like to ask them any questions or anything.
Where is the line at between Bella Vista and Bentonville? I know it's right through there. Where is it? The parking lot or?
Yeah, the parking lot. Well, I don't know exactly where the line is. Jason might know better.
Their lot, there are 2 lots, are in the city of Bella Vista. So when you walk onto the memorial, you're in the city of Bella Vista.
Okay.
That parking area, most of it, as well as the lake and all that's in the city of Bentonville.
Okay.
So you're talking about where the line is located, is right through there.
Okay.
That property is owned by Veterans Council of Northwest Arkansas Incorporated, so they do own the property right there.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, we don't have to discuss every little nuance today, but that gives you an idea what we're thinking about. And I just want to bring it up to you, and if you have any thoughts over the next few weeks, feel free to share them.
And what's the timeline of like transferring ownership, or the timeline that they'd want to have to get that taken care of?
We didn't really talk about that, but I was assuming they meant in the short term, next few months.
Awesome.
So, if there's not any more questions, I guess we can move on then from that. We'll go back to the top of the agenda. The first item is an ordinance that's unfinished business. Amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2022-46586 from R1 residential single-family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. And I believe that was an amendment from our last meeting, right, Larry? Changing it from
And the
C2 to
amendment is out on the
C1.
table there for anyone who wants to see it.
Yeah,
So this would be the second reading at this meeting.
yeah, that's right, second reading. So, any questions about that?
So I thought we were going to C2.
C2 to C1.
Request was C2.
C2, okay,
Yeah.
I got it backwards in
And
my head.
and
Okay,
we
all right, that makes
proposed to
sense.
go to C1 because of the
Yep, yep.
concerns by neighboring
I got it.
properties. residents.
I see Gene Grosclose back there representing Cooper, so he got questions. I just want to let you know he is here.
Yeah,
You may
good
not have
point.
any.
And we didn't need to do public notice again.
No,
Okay.
it doesn't go back to planning commission or anything.
Okay.
Any more questions on that, or you want to move along?
Well, this was attached. I mean, that's the most recent survey or whatever.
Taylor will probably answer your questions.
So you have a exhibit that has the plat of the 2 acres that legal description exhibit A is describing, so tract A. That is what's being described in the ordinance exhibit A. That's just a visual exhibit so you can see the land that they're wanting to rezone. You also have in the packet, the applicant provided a survey grade measurement of the buffer in between the tract A and the Park Ridge Lane properties to the east. He went ahead and had his surveyor provide a to scale measurement of that buffer rather than my approximated buffer scale. So that's in the packet and the one posted online with the ordinance. I don't know if you had any questions about C1 or the development process if something were to be developed there or anything like that.
And is this a land division that's occurring with the rezoning, or just a definition of the area to be rezoned and they'll be divided off if they have a buyer?
So we were trying, if this is to be successful as a rezone, the intent is to have the correct zone shown on the plat when they come through with an incidental lot split. So it has not been split yet. They want to do that after the rezone's final, so it shows the correct zoning on the plat itself.
Okay.
So right now, it's just an exhibit.
Is it the intent of the owner to have us go to third and final at the next meeting?
I don't know if that is their intent, but staff would, if there's no further questions, staff would request a third and final reading. If there's no further questions.
I think that the applicant would like it to go through as fast as possible, so I'm sure they're not going to object to if you wanted to speed it up, from what I've heard in the past.
Any more feedback from the neighbors?
Staff has not received anything since the public hearing. I've gotten questions, but no comment. Just asking about it, where it's at, in the review status, but no sent public comment.
I have not heard anything.
I think Councilman Fowler noted that he met with some of the Park Ridge residents that he would probably talk about at the meeting on Monday.
I did as well.
The ones on the street here.
Correct. They were not super excited about the possibility.
Okay. Thank you, Taylor.
Okay.
Item B is under new business, amending code ordinance of the city of Bella Vista to enact a new section 2-311 donations to provide budgeting and appropriation of donated and requested funds for the budget year in which funding is received. I believe this was actually from Kim Hall. She is out of town today, and she did offer to be here on Zoom. I told her I didn't think it was necessary. So the idea about this is we keep getting these small donations, and city council has to step in and have a special, oh yes, we'll take these funds in, and oh yes, you can spend them. And it seemed a little bit repetitive because it's usually fairly obvious. You know, somebody gives a gift of $8,000, such and such a department, you're gonna take the funds and spend it in that department, so.
And usually for the purpose requested. Right?
Yeah. So, that was the reasoning for that.
The library gets a lot of donations. In fact, we had a bequest, someone passed away, and I think it was $10,000 that came to the library. And so that's extra money, of course, so they want to be able to go ahead and use that without having to come back through the budget process again, just to recognize it and re-appropriate it, so.
Would that require an amendment to our budget to add?
Well, as it is right now, but if you adopt this ordinance, then when that situation occurs, you basically will have automatically done it. That makes sense. Also keep in mind that whenever we spend more than $35,000, you're going to see that as a part of an agreement to purchase. So you don't have to worry about there being $1 million donation out there that you would never have any say-so over or anything like that. If we spent that kind of money, you're going to see it.
Okay, next one is item C, amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map the rezone property described in petition number 2022-47148 from P1 Conservation District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District. Let's see. Taylor, do you want to expound on that?
Sure. The applicant's also here too if you have any questions for him. But this is the clubhouse at 98 Clubhouse Drive. The applicant is seeking, like the others that you've seen that come through, a zone that meets the historical and current land use. It is currently zoned as P1 conservation, and that is land intended that cannot be developed due to wetlands, topography, floodplains, stuff like that. However, it is a developed lot. It does have BV Bar and Grill. I'm sure everyone's familiar with this site. So it's got a restaurant, other commercial uses as well. Staff is recommending approval based off the historical land use at this site. It is C1 neighborhood commercial. It does meet those requirements to serve the neighborhoods around it with services such as what it already provides, retail and restaurant amongst commercial, recreational, and other items like that. I don't really have anything much to add to that. There is a staff report in there from the Planning Commission. A public hearing was held with the Planning Commission during this last cycle. And there's also a letter to you guys as well in there included from the applicant. And he's, I'm sure, happy to allude to that if you need him to. But this is the clubhouse at 98 Clubhouse Drive.
There weren't any concerns at the Planning Commission, were there?
We did have one public input, aside from Councilman Wilms. We did have one public input, but it was for the Glasgow one, 222 Glasgow,
Oh, okay,
the next one.
yeah.
But none was spoken on the record at this one.
Okay, let's try D, ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map the rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2022-47153, county parcel number 1617991, from R1 residential single family to C1 neighborhood commercial district.
Okay, this one is the Branchwood Recreation Center at 222 Glasgow, however you prefer. This is currently zoned for a single-family home, and historically it has not been that. It has a civic and 2 commercial uses on it that established historically and current. It's got recreational club, controlled commercial, recreational, and personal improvement services at this site. Again, a historical, commercial, and civic use. They're requesting C1 neighborhood commercial. Staff find that the district purpose and intent meets the current use. It is a commercial or neighborhood commercial that services the neighborhood around it with those services and uses already mentioned. Staff will also note that our future land use comprehensive plan, our 2040 comp plan, dictates this area is a future neighborhood center. It is also surrounded by institutional or civic uses to the east, and then more commercial to the west, being that private golf course. So all the items have been met, so staff is recommending approval of this one as well. And this one did have one concerned resident speaking at the public hearing. I don't know if you'd like to allude to that, but it was just more concern for just commercial zone in the area. Due to future use, and the applicant discussed how difficult it would be for the ownership to change over from POA, but again, you can answer more questions on that, but that's just a brief summary is what that public hearing went like.
You did say this is Branchwood Auto Country?
Yes, Branchwood Recreation Center at 222 Glasgow.
Go ahead, Larry.
A question for you, Taylor. When I look at the staff report, there is a P1 across the street opposite the fire stations, new fire station site. Did we not rezone that to C1 at some time?
That one failed. It didn't pass the planning commission, and they never appealed their decision.
Okay.
But the year has passed, and the applicant can request that again at any time.
Okay.
And that was at a time when I remember that Cooper was doing quite a bit of rezoning, and they had a whole mess of them they were doing that day, and this one they got a little flack at planning commission, so they just figured they'd drop it and get the other 15 or whatever it was done the way they wanted.
Right.
So it's still sitting the way it was. Okay. E is an ordinance amending section 107-378 permits of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to remove concurrent submittal requirements for grading and erosion control, building permit applications, and replace with a time limit of 180 days and for other purposes. Did you want to explain this, Taylor?
Yeah, this is a project that planning has been handling for a long time. Basically, since enforcement went live and new code requirements back in October of 2021, which requires concurrent submittal of a GEC, which is your grading and erosion control application, which is for lot clearing, bringing in fill, removing fill, stormwater pollution prevention, where you're putting your BMPs, silt fence, all that stuff. Our code requires that application be submitted at the same time for single family and duplexes as their building application. And so there is a unique constraint being placed on the majority of our R1 development due to us being a majority septic city. The contractors have time and time again, we've received many verbal complaints and outreach and requests to look at this. This has been enforced since October of 2021, so it's been well over a year. Staff found that enforcing this section of code didn't fix the initial concern we had. We had a 12% pre-clearing rate before this went live, and since it went live, we've had a 13%. So not only did it not help, it went up 1%. So now that we have the enforcement corrected and we're following code as required, Now that we're able to see what the actual code that we have as written is doing, we're coming back to fix it. And due to that, we went to the Planning Commission in May of last year with a proposal, got some feedback on that proposal from the contractors, and had many stakeholder meetings with surveyors, septic designers, ADH, you name it, over the past few months. And then to put a cherry on top, we released a public input survey to the 710 contractors that we have on file. Only about 65-ish% of them responded to it, but the overwhelming amount of them, over 75%, preferred the other option that we put together. But the intent is the same as what we took to Planning Commission back in May. It is to allow them to clear before they pull a building permit, before they apply for a building permit, so that way they can clear the land, then they can get their septic designers out there more comfortably to shoot the lot, get the septic design layout, which is required for a building application, because right now all of that's required at once. And so the chicken before the egg. How do we get the septic design if we can't clear the lot because they can't get out there because the trees and all that good stuff here are very thick? So you'll see the public input survey outcome attached to this. So to just directly respond to all the contractors, staff is proposing this super small change to existing code for a new in-house practice that would allow us to still kind of protect from indiscriminate clearing, but also allow them to clear earlier to hopefully get those septic lots a better start at the development process than what's going on right now.
So this would require a permit from them to do the grading and clearing?
We already do require one.
Okay.
But right now it has to
So
be.
they would have a permit to do this work before they come in with the application packages?
For the building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So the only thing that would change is the timeline. So instead of applying at the same time and maybe taking a pre-work fee, because I have to get in there anyway to make the lot accessible for septic designers. That's all that's going to change is the timeline. So instead of at the same time, they now have a 6-month startup time to get the rest of their stuff that they need for the building application.
So what happens after the 6 months?
So the rest of code would still be enforced. So let's say they get a GEC and they for some reason can't get the building application within 6 months of the GEC being issued, or they can't apply for the building permit within 6 months of the GEC being issued. Then, just like normal code requires already, to close out a GEC, you have to restabilize the lot as closely as possible with vegetation. So basically, it would just, if they can't develop on it, septic system, something happens, maybe the clearing work damages the lot and it's no longer perkable for a septic system, the GEC will still require them to close it out by restabilizing and vegetating the land.
So back with your old rule, what were you worried about, that people would clear the lot and then say, oh, I changed my mind, I'm not going to build?
We had, yeah, that was the intent of the first enforcement change. We were having a lot of that. We were having just the same amount that we're having now. Clearing lots and then maybe just selling it or leaving or dropping the project, and then you just have a lot that's cleared. And so indiscriminate clearing, or even sometimes there were some instances where the wrong lot was being cleared because there was no permit or anything like that posted. So we had a couple that we had to put stop work orders on because they weren't even on the right lot. So it was kind of an effort to kind of protect from all angles of indiscriminate clearing, kind of maybe protect a little bit of the trees that are going on that we're losing in Bella Vista. But in this second big half of the change was that we realized code was not being followed at all. And so we had to get our enforcement aligned with code to see if code even worked. And that, it's not working like we thought it would. So now we can make changes now that we know that what's written isn't working. If that makes sense.
In view of the fact they've cleared a couple of lots that really weren't the right ones, do we ask for a survey or the lot pins being verified before they start any clearing activity?
Yeah, for those lots that are cleared by accident, typically we'll notify the property owner. We'll try and get that, make sure that they know their lot was cleared, because it's really
But do we require that the lot pins for the subject lot that they want to clear be verified by a surveyor before the work begins, before the application?
That's supposed to for all GECs. So you're supposed to have a survey go out there and mark the property pins with the pink flags before you can even clear.
Okay.
That's one of the first steps.
So that is a required procedure for them. And
Yeah, so their contractors are supposed to be looking, or land clearing contract subs are supposed to be looking for a GEC permit posted at the front property line and pink flags. So they know that they're clearing the right lot and they're staying within the property boundaries.
I have one more question. in your spare time, I don't know if you've had time to analyze all the proposed laws that have been submitted, but there's one that says you have to give a permit in 60 days, yes or no?
I read that proposal.
So does that cover all these kind of things?
That shouldn't affect this, because they're still getting, like, the permit, which would also help staff get back, hopefully, to the normal time frame of review, but the GEC is still being issued. The GEC is still being issued before that, before the 60-day, if that law were to go through. The building permit shouldn't be, hopefully, they wouldn't be applying for the building permit. Hopefully, they would utilize this carrot and just get their GEC, and then whenever they're ready with all the things that they need, apply for the building application. But Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Those rules are talking about once you apply,
Yeah.
a period of time that a minimum or a maximum period of time before there's a decision rendered or a permit issued.
Yeah.
What this does is it says you don't have to submit these two applications at the same time. Once you do this, then you've got 6 months to file that other application. So
Yeah.
that's a little different issue.
Sure.
Is 180 days enough time?
6 months.
Yeah, is that enough time? I don't know.
That's the average lifespan of a permit, typically. But they all seem, their initial proposal was 120 days, and they said 180 days would be better. So we went with that. That's also the average lifespan anyway, so.
So what I'm hearing, there's nothing negative about this.
That's the goal. We're hoping that this is really just to provide some relief to single-family developers. That's the goal.
To prevent us from getting into the issue crossways with the legislation that's proposed about the 60-day mandatory issuance, do we have to put in this that the building permit application shall not be included with this package?
I don't think so.
That's two separate permits.
Yeah,
It's two separate permits.
the building and the GEC are totally two different applications and two different reviews.
But they could come in with a building permit application at the same time here.
Well, if they don't have a septic, they can't apply for a building. That's what the issue's happening.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in order for them to qualify to file an application for a building permit, they must have
They must have a
the
stamped,
complete packet done, which includes the design for the septic system.
yeah, you must have a complete submittal
Okay.
for it to pass over the desk.
All right, we're protected, I think, then. Agree?
Okay, thanks very much, Dale, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, number F is an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Bank Funding LLC to provide short-term financing under Amendment 78 to the Arkansas Constitution for the acquisition of a Pierce Ascendant fire truck, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. And what this ordinance is in Kim Hall's bailiwick. As of the end of November, we had an unfunded reserve, or unassigned reserve of 18.9 million. So I don't know what it's going to be at the end of the year, but it's going to be substantial. So you might say, so why are you wanting to borrow money? We have a number of expenditures coming up that are significant. And we have a really unusual situation here, and Kim attached a chart trying to show what that was. There was quite a bit of interest in this loan. The Amendment 78 loans are for 5 years, and the rate we got was 4.12%. There was at least five or six bidders. And the odd thing about that, which he's trying to show in that chart, is we're able to earn as much or more than the borrowing rate, which is not normal. So, but she wanted to borrow the money in the first place out of she's quite conservative and saw some expenditures coming up and wanted to make sure, we've got a bunch of money invested in various CDs that come up at different times. She wanted to make sure she had enough money. And I was skeptical about that until I saw the rates and that you could borrow the money virtually for free. She's shown that if you took a 5-year CD, it actually would cost you a little over $1,000 a year. which isn't much when you're borrowing 1.3 million. But if you took some of these other links of CDs or treasury bills, you actually would be coming out ahead, actually be making money. So anyway, that's what the proposal is, and it's for this new fire truck.
So how long is it gonna take to get the fire truck?
It's, well, you can't do this unless it's within 90 days of when you're getting it. And we're supposed to get the fire truck the end of April.
That's the
So,
one we ordered a year or so ago.
yeah, at
It's
least,
been over a year ago.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's due, final inspection's due at the end of April, and it's in the paint booth now, so it's in construction.
Who is Bank Funding LLC?
Oh, it actually is an intermediary, and they are actually using a Florida bank. They are a go-between company that finds banks for loans. The second place was Regions Bank, I think. The one thing they all have in common is they don't want a real fast prepayment. All the banks seem to think that the interest rates are going to go down later. So anyway,
So on this one, we want to move to third and final reading and then adopt the emergency clause?
yeah,
Well, it have to be.
Yes.
yeah, because of the timing of getting the,
And the reason for the emergency clause is whenever you're doing any sort of financing situation, the lenders don't want any question about the effective date of the authorization. So they always request we put that emergency clause in there so we verify that it is effective immediately.
yeah, normally they have, and on the earnings on the interest rates, they move a little bit in one direction or the other every day, so not gigantic, but little movements here and there. So. Okay, next one is G, resolution approving the mayor's reappointment of Daniel Ellis to the Bella Vista Planning Commission for a 4-year term expiring March 1, 2027. He, of course, is chairman of the Planning Commission, and his full-time job is with Craft and Tall, and I think he's been doing an excellent job. I'm quite happy that he's willing to serve again. So, any questions or anything? Okay, next one, H, is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Jackson Brown Architects for architectural services related to the renovation of the central fire station number 1.
Mayor, I
Chief
have
Sims.
Randy Poculett here with Jackson Brown Poculett, if y'all have any questions for him. So,
How are we paying for this?
so this is currently in the 2023 capital projects. Well, the start of it, anyway.
So how much is funded in that budget?
So as of right now, we have 2.1 million in capital projects to help fund this
That's being
project.
committed for that in
That's correct.
2023?
That's
Or
correct.
23 and 24?
No, that's just 23.
23
yeah.
only?
That's correct.
Okay, so it obviously can carry over into 24. and
That's
25,
correct.
but-
Which, yes.
Okay.
And this is for, the first part of this is for taking the old police station and turning it into living quarters for the fire.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We gotta have a architect to be able to help us with that, so that's what this is all about.
So did I see a cost there that was much higher than that for the total thing, the not to exceed number, or am I confusing that with a different project?
So you're confusing it with this, well, you're confusing it, but with the same project, but with a different AIA. So when Mark Clinner done their AIA it was last month, that you had that done, his included a total project cost percentage based off the total project cost of what we're looking at doing in the future, possibly doing in the future.
Arms around the whole site.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with their AIA contract, it's a percentage based off the cost of phases of the project.
So we have a breakdown of the phases, I don't know if I saw that in here, but.
So, yes, so phase one is the actual two-story building to get that renovated into fire living.
Quarters, upstairs or wherever you're
Well,
going in.
yeah, probably downstairs, living upstairs, kitchen, bathroom, showers, things like that. And as of right now, that's first phase, which that'll leave admin being in the center section that's currently there now until we make a decision on what we're gonna do in the future. Marks was the whole project, basically what we thought it might be. Jackson Brown Pocula is basically the whole project, but just in phases.
So this, they're doing the first phase, but.
We would use them for the
As we
whole
move forward,
project,
They would
it's just,
continue
yeah,
to, yeah.
first phase.
Right. The whole contract just scared me a little bit, that's all. How we're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, it's been a real challenge lately with the cost of, seems to be for everyone, the cost of construction, and when you're rehabilitating an existing building also, the cost of all of that stuff seems to be headed upward.
Do we have asbestos issues there to deal with?
I don't think so on that particular building, but I'm sure it's
Not that we
built
know.
in 85.
That'll be part of the first,
Yeah, that
very
that's
first part of it will be to go in.
Multi-story, probably not, but in the central area, the old fire station.
Yeah, the old fire
probably.
station, yes, we do have asbestos in there, I know that, for a fact.
What year was that? The old fire station was?
Started in 69 and finished in 70. We moved in May of 70.
And the two-story building, was that what era, was it same era or? a little-
So the two-story was built in 85, was? Is that
Somewhere
right?
in there, you'd have to look at the plaque on the wall, but
85,
yeah,
I believe.
it was early.
85.
And they gave us the downstairs initially, and then they moved us, and then they brought us back.
Right.
Moved you in and moved you out, right?
Hmm?
Moved you in and then moved you out.
And
Pretty
where
much,
you're at-
yeah.
Where you're at was 72 and then added on to 76, the city hall.
Okay, so next one is resolution approving the mayor's reappointment of Gail Cleason to the Bella Vista Planning Commission for a 4-year term. She's another person whose term was up, yeah, and is willing to be reappointed. So, any questions about that? Okay, let's see, next one is J, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a guaranteed maximum price amendment for the project remainder to the contract with Clinard Construction Management, Inc. for construction management services related to the construction of a fire training facility in the amount of $5,084,751. Chief?
What kind of questions? Where do you want to start?
Oh, we got this big?
Okay,
How much does that exceed the original?
Doubles?
so not quite doubles,
Almost.
not quite doubles, but close to double. So if you remember, when we went out for the bond was actually the numbers were actually kind of put together in 2019 for that bond project. And we started out in mid-18 kind of coming up with the plan. You know, we went and looked at different training programs, different training centers and sites and so forth, and got the best number we could get at the time. And in 2019, when I submitted the numbers to Mayor Christie and Kerry Elston, which was the accounting director at the time, the budget was about almost $2 million is what we kind of figured. It was under $2 million, but it was somewhere in that same price range. So when we submitted it, I added a little bit to that because I wasn't for sure if we were going to have enough funding based off the number we were getting. I remember in 2019, and nobody knew about COVID. Nobody knew that the inflation. Nobody knew that we're going to have supply chain issues, and the cost of materials would go up when we actually budgeted for that project. So that's kind of part of our our, the limit we have right now. We asked for $5.5 million in the bond. We figured we allocated about $3 million to the new Branchwood Fire Station. So this kind of give you a heads up in mind here. We built that fire station, the fire station and engineering and everything for $2.5 million. So we saved some money there to put towards the bond, and we knew that. We knew we were gonna have a shortfall after the bond was passed. We might have a shortfall in that particular program. So that's why we done everything we could to save the money to move into the bond, not knowing that we're still gonna need the additional funding for that. I was thinking ahead in 2021, and actually in 2022, I'd asked the council for some additional funding, which they gave me $200,000 per resolution. And then in 23's capital projects, Kim and I got together, because I still didn't know exactly how much it was going to cost, because we haven't had the buildable plans yet. And I asked for another $600,000 in my capital projects. So I have another $800,000, which I've laid it out here. $800,000 or $600,000, $400,000 in capital projects this year, and $200,000 already had. So an additional $600,000 to add to that number. Still not enough. When I got the biddable plans, so I started going out and looking what else we could utilize for that, since it is a new project. And Mayor Flynn and I talked a little bit about this, and I also talked to Mayor Christie about it, before he left, about using impact fees on it. We'll have close to $1 million by the time I need to use those funds in impact fees to go towards that project. Those are time sensitive. They can be spent on new projects. This is a new project. I feel like this is something that could be spent on because of what we're going to utilize it for. Not only training, we'll house equipment there. As I was telling Mayor Flynn, that we'll have an engine there. We'll also probably have an ambulance there. And at any time, those trucks could run out of that station during the daytime if need to be. I have people staffed down there most of the time during the day, and they are firefighters and trained EMTs and paramedics. So we can utilize that as a response station if we need to. And I just felt like that was a good use of those funds. Now, with that, to say that, we don't know exactly how much is going to be left over. I'm speculating that. I'll do everything I can. As you can see, I have a history. Not only did we save money in Station 4, which we saved quite a bit in that project, we saved money in Station 3, always looking out for the best interest of the taxpayers' dollars and doing everything we can to do things fiscally responsible. And we'll continue doing that. We'll do it in every way we can to make sure we build what we need to meet the needs of our department and the city. I don't know what that end number is going to be. I speculated on the $600,000 to be determined. It could be less than that. And I'll make sure that I do my best to make sure I make that number as less as I can.
So right now, out of the 5.1 million that's in here, am I on the right?
What, 5.5? Oh, the 5, yeah, 5.
Yeah, it's
5.1.
rounded up as 5.1, yeah.
Roughly 5.1. Of that, we have $2.5 million off the bond issue. That was there, right?
Yes, so.
And then you're saying that we have accrued in the impact fees another $1 million, so we have literally 3.5 there. And you have accrued $600,000 in CIP monies between 22 and 23.
That's correct.
So we're now up to 3.5, 4.1. So we're about $1 million short.
I don't know where you're getting that.
Well, if the project cost here is 5.084, 5.1 million. And
Yeah, we've already spent $1 million on that project. So that 584, almost $1 million comes off of that. That's already been spent out of the bond.
Spent out of the 2.5 that was allocated.
That's spent out of the bond.
So we only
Yeah,
have.
it was really.
So it's really 4,084,000. That is what's left.
And some
Is that right?
change. That's right.
Well, so
If
we
you want to
have,
round it off, it'd be 4,084,000. You take those numbers.
yeah,
you were just-
4.1 million left is what we have they need to spend.
Yeah, I think I laid it out for you.
Yeah, it's on the.
Yeah, it's laid out,
I think it's laid
I
out
just
pretty
didn't-
well.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Where are you? What page are you on? 77, I'm not there.
It looks like 2.9 comes from the bond, 2.9 million.
Yeah, so we was able to carry over just about $3 million from the bonds.
So based on
$3,924,154, to be exact.
based on your calculations, then we already have the money.
So we have the total of 5.084. We've already spent 933. So we have bond monies left of 1.99.
Give or take.
And then we have an allocation of capital monies in 2022 and 23 of another 600,000. And then we have $1 million in impact fees.
Well, that's why I'm looking at spending $1 million. By the time we need to spend the money, well, we should have that money collected. Right now, we have right at 700,000 collected impact
Okay,
fees.
so you expect by the end of the project.
If you extrapolate it out, Kim
we will
extrapolated
have-
out, it's like $980-something.
So we have a project balance of 600,000 to be determined where the
Well,
resource would come from.
Give or take, yes. The best I can speculate.
Is this one of those expenses that Kim was looking at?
Yeah, she knew the, the fire station number 1 and this were both coming up, and she's afraid everybody'd look at the balance and say, oh man, we got it made, what can we run out and spend this on? And she's kind of, hey, let's just chill a little bit, see where we come out.
Slow it down. Well, I would be inclined to do a borrowing on this along with the fire truck.
Well, see, that was something we talked about. These are things I talked about with Kim and Mayor Christie, not necessarily Mayor Flynn on the fire station, but let's just wait and see what that bottom line is down there. I don't know what that bottom line's gonna be. Is it 600,000? It could be less than 600,000. I don't know exactly what it's gonna be, but I think it's gonna be less than 600,000.
Our experience has always been that it's increased over what they've suggested it to be.
Well, and we looked at that too, Larry, so we had to add some of those increases in our own mind, if you see what I'm saying. We had to add those because we don't know what it's gonna be like, but I think we're gonna be all right.
I think one of the things that happened on this 20/20 hindsight. You remember early on, we had so much trouble finding a site, and
Yeah,
you
I
were
know.
scouring around forever finding a place.
And we spent some money in doing that.
So, and I
the
do wanna,
20/20 hindsight is the way the economy's gone and things have happened. The faster you build, the better.
yeah, so I do wanna.
Basically what it amounted to.
I do want to kind of bring up too is we spent a lot of money on the Tudor side because we had to do a study on that site to see if it was going to be feasible before we built city property on it.
Yeah.
That cost a lot of money, folks. And then we also bought, that also includes the land for the fire training facility and the land for fire station number 3. So you're looking at almost about $250,000 in additional funds that included land purchase as well. Both of them.
That's not shown in your numbers.
That's right. Well, yeah, it is. It's kind of showing in those numbers.
Is it a part of the 5084?
It is, no, the 933 includes the fire training facility land property.
The stuff that's already spent, in other
Site
words,
3,
yeah.
and Site 3, right?
Yeah, Station 3 shows up here in the balance that we saved and what we spent on it, the $2,575,000. Well, it's not in there, but it's my notes. I'm not talking about fire station number 3, I'm talking about the fire training facility. But that includes the land, but the whole bond included both properties.
So, anyway.
So in our action to borrow money here, do we need to add this money to that?
I don't know, I
We're
wouldn't,
talking
I
about
wouldn't,
the
no, I wouldn't think
fire
so.
truck? We're talking about the fire truck, do we need to add money to that?
No,
I
no,
don't-
I don't think that
no.
at this time. I think we should wait on this. We can wait and see a little bit.
We got this, I mean, what I've got in the bond is gonna carry us for, I'd say, several months into the project. So, and what we got allocated in capital improvement projects as well, that's gonna carry us through, that's gonna get us through several months worth of construction wise.
Steve, I meant to ask you this before, but the impact fee number, that's just the fire fees, right? You're not
That's
including the
correct.
police
No, it's
fees?
just the fire fees.
Okay,
That's
just to
correct.
make sure.
And that's for, and the impact fees are for that purpose?
It's for anything new that the fire department would do. New fire
Equipment
stations,
or
new.
facility?
Something that's not, something that we don't have now, it's something we're building.
Okay.
Right. New fire
It's gonna be
trucks.
for new additional.
New additional.
Stuff. It can't be to replace something you've already got.
So this 5084 total project cost, that comes from where? I mean, is that based on some plans, some guarantees that you've set?
We went out to
With
bid.
the architect, you worked it out with the
Yes,
architect?
we had fully biddable
You got his name on
plans.
the dotted line, you're not gonna spend any more than that?
That's the,
And he's gonna
that's
be
the
the low
guaranteed
bidder?
maximum price.
And that's the total price that they put together.
That's the
minus
worst
everything.
case, that's as much as it would
Worst
cost
case
you.
scenario.
It could be less, but that is the most you need to be prepared to pay.
That's right.
That's
Well,
what
it's
the
all said and
guaranteed
done.
maximum price.
So there is a contingency in that money? All right.
Kind of put this into perspective too, we're finishing up the fire training center for the city of Bentonville, and their total money excluding land and professional fees is $4.2 million. So roughly the same size tower, no support building, and not nearly as large of a paved area for their course training
As we have.
as we have. This is the full three-part package, sport building, tower, and driving range, so they'll be able to do all their training, I believe, Chief, correct?
Well, Steve, if they decided not to do it, how much money would we have spent on the project without having it done?
Without having.
Yeah, how much have we already spent? If this council doesn't do this,
Oh,
how much would they have spent?
On that project?
Yeah.
Right at $1 million.
Because you've got the pre-cost for the site down on Chelsea off of there, right?
Yeah.
You've got that cost that's committed. plus the-
That's in the
Plus the
930.
cost that we're buying the land here and doing the improvements we've done to date.
That's correct. That's the 933 that you see right there.
Okay.
Includes everything we spent on the fire training facility from day one, from 2020 on. And I just want to throw some kudos to the guys that built Carlisle Drive. We saved a lot of money. We cleared the land ourselves. Knowing, here's the thing, folks. We knew we were going to have an issue. We just didn't know how bad the issue was going to be. So we took it upon ourselves to clear the land, save several $1,000s there. We have 3 of my guys built the road with the street department. Well, my guys built the road, and of course with the architects and engineers helping us design the road and everything. We got the road designed, and they built it. They built Carlisle Drive. We saved thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on that project. And that's all included in this 933. We didn't spend near what was bidded, because y'all got a bid on that. We didn't spend anything near doing the work ourselves. We were looking at ways to save money to the taxpayers. That's our job. We chose to do that because we knew we were going to have a deficit. I just didn't know it was going to be this bad. So I just started looking for ways I could find money that was already allocated to the fire department to finish the project, the much needed project here.
Well, we do have a time frame to finish spending the money in the bond issue as well.
Well, I don't know if there's
3-year window?
I don't know if there's a time frame on spending the money, but there's a time frame to start spending the money, or projects, right, Jason?
Right. I don't know the answer to your question, Larry, off the top of my head. There's probably
And maybe,
an answer, but I don't know what it is. I hate to admit that publicly, but I don't know.
yeah, my recollection was it was 3 years you had to start. I don't know if
That's
that meant you had to have all of it
Most
spent.
government experience I have, they can't wait to spend the money. They never worry about not ever spending it, so it doesn't come up very much.
Vladimir's gonna blow everything up, so we won't need it anyway.
Won't need it anyway, right? Okay.
Well, I can tell you right now that we will make sure that we build an efficient building that works for us at the most value we can get to save money.
You benefit yourself by building a very energy efficient building because the operating costs can kill you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we'll have to do, and I think we can
Electricity
do
is not
that.
gonna go
So,
down.
Wood burning stove.
we should have saved the
Save
wood.
the trees for wood, you know, for wood
Stacked it
burning
up.
stove,
Yeah, there
that
you
cut
go.
down on expenses.
Thank you, Chief, for your thorough.
Okay, thanks. Okay, that brings us to discussion items, SB2 gravel requirements for parking.
Yeah, this is not to build an ordinance or resolution or anything else. It's something that was brought to my attention, and see if anybody else feels similarly to how I felt. House is built in the 80s. Guy bought it in the early 2000s. When he bought it, there was already a side driveway there. And it's not SB2 because it was before the ordinance, but it is creek gravel. He maintains it, it looks very nice. He's been parking on this creek gravel since 2000. Well, recently, the community development has come by and told him he can't no longer park there. He has to eliminate his creek gravel and put down SB2. It's going to cost him upwards of $500 to do that. And, you know, the question I have is, he's been there 10, 12 years, long before we did the ordinance. Why are we going back at this late date, making him change it? Now, I've heard from our side, and I've heard from the public, and, you know, I'm thinking this is sort of like the white fence deal. The guy was there for many years before we built this thing, and now all of a sudden we're going to enforce it. He's got no problem doing it because he's a good citizen and everything else, but you know, he's wondering why all of a sudden, after he's been in the house 20-some years, all of a sudden we're making an issue of it.
Well, I think a little bit, when I look at it, the city didn't incorporate until the year 2007.
Correct.
The rules relating to this probably didn't happen until 2009, maybe 2010. I don't know how early they came, but it wasn't when we incorporated.
Correct.
Those were developed afterward by a whole crew of people, including some employees of the city. So, and it was a proactive thing. The reality is that we have other situations where we prohibited, I don't know, where we don't allow them to park on the non-SB2 gravel, do we not?
It has to be SB2.
We have other situations where we've prohibited people from parking on decorative stone and required either they put in SB2 or they discontinue the violation, right?
Correct, we've been enforcing that as long as I,
And
before
you were here, it was enforced too, I believe.
correct.
So, you know, and if we feel it needs to stay, well, you know, too bad, so sad, but I thought I'd bring it up because I think that's not necessarily correct, but if that's how the city feels basically, and he'll do it, but there's an awful lot of people who are going to be in that boat.
Well, I'm not sure if there will be a lot, because we've probably caught a bunch of them already, in minor instances where that's happened.
No, there's many more than you think.
There could be, could be.
Get up early in the morning before the guys take off for work and look at all the cars parked on something other than SB2.
Yeah,
I know.
And SB2 is basically ugly.
well,
You got weeds coming up through it and everything else. If you put down rick gravel, or even if you put down native stone, it's gonna look a whole lot better. But, you know, if the powers to be say, that's it, too bad, so sad, I can live with that.
well, the decorative stone may have a weed barrier underneath it, whereas the SB2 probably doesn't have weed barrier underneath it.
We don't require that, so that, you know, so no big deal with that.
And after a few years, you'll get weeds growing on the decorative stone too, because there's enough organic material accumulated that it will start to grow weeds there. So, you know.
Anyhow, so that's where that is. Think about it, and if you think we need to fix it, well, we can bring it up next time, because I told Jason I would not request a resolution or an ordinance or anything. Just throwing it out there, think about what's out there, okay? And then the other one, I've gotten, I think almost all of us may have got a phone call from this guy. He's trying to get his short-term rental permit. He was told that he has to have liability insurance. He has liability insurance, he claims, through Airbnb, not part of the rider on his home policy. But he was told that, no, it's got to be on the declaration page of your homeowner's insurance. We will not accept the Airbnb's insurance. So that's something else we need to think about. He's got insurance, it's just not the kind we're looking for.
Well, typically, if you own property, you will have a personal insurance policy on the property for property damage, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's what the checklist asks for.
No, it asks for, it's got to be on the declaration page, period.
On the declaration of whose page?
The insurance page with your homeowners.
So he has a homeowner's policy.
Yep. And he doesn't have the rider for the rental side on his homeowner's policy. He's depending on what Airbnb claims to have to cover that part.
I would assume, not speaking for staff, they're managing this program, but I would assume that if he has a liability coverage, that he ought to be able to get something from Airbnb that says, we offer this liability coverage and here's what it is.
He claims he has.
Well, then he needs to submit that and see if
Your
it's
ordinance is
acceptable.
very particular.
This is where the rub
It
is.
says that they have to provide a copy of the declaration page showing that they have an applicable rider, showing coverage for short-term rentals. That's what your ordinance requires.
Okay.
We've looked at the, this Airbnb insurance, if you want to, I'll call it that, I don't know what they call it. But it was called Air, well, Mayor, it was called Air something, I forgot what it was.
Yeah.
And it's not typical insurance. And there are about 3 or 4 pages of exclusions, and in fact, it's not the same thing.
So
I know other cities in the region do not accept that as proof of insurance.
Fayetteville already, here's the problem. If you've ever done, Fayetteville already rejected it, but if you've ever done commercial transactions, somebody having a pamphlet that says they have insurance, which Airbnb has a pamphlet that says, hey, we got insurance for you, that means zero. You gotta give a certificate with, and our ordinance didn't contemplate this, but you'd have to give a certificate showing you're an additional named insured. I don't know if Airbnb would be willing to do that for this guy.
I don't know, like I said, I'm just throwing it out there and see how we feel about it. I didn't think it would go very far, but I told him I would indeed bring it up.
And then Jason
And that's what
did
I'm
some
doing.
research, and their exclusions were like 3 pages long and excludes a lot of things.
So it would seem to me that acceptable forms would be on the declaration page of the homeowner's policy, or a, what do they call it, the certificate of
The
insurance.
acceptable forms are what your ordinance says.
That's the only
what
one?
the staff is going to find is acceptable.
That's the
Which
only
is the
form.
declaration page showing an applicable rider, showing the coverage. And that's almost an exact word for word, but not precisely a word for word. And so we are working with the requirements of the ordinance exactly. And so that's what, if it needs to change, you all have that power, but right now.
So from your legal perspective, does a certificate of insurance coverage
Well, that would be very useful.
provide the same confirmation of coverage that you would like?
That would be proof of insurance. That's a different type of proof of
different
insurance,
vehicle
but it's
of
typical in transactions that you would have a certificate of insurance showing who's covered and to what limit.
So
Doesn't particularly tell us the nature of the coverage, but the rider, at least gives us an idea that it's typical homeowners coverage.
I guess if it has 4 pages of
I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm afraid the legislature's about to put us out of the short-term rental business.
Yeah.
So you might, and we are in litigation on this, I'll remind you, and so I'm not advocating a lot of wholesale changes that could alter all those calculations at this point. Maybe let's look at it in 6 months and see where everything stands, and then obviously, you all can, there will most likely need to be some tweaks of some nature. We've found several things, but in terms of this insurance, I can just tell you that staff is, because we talk about it a lot, we're doing exactly what that ordinance says. So if you're wanting to allow something else, then y'all are going to need to change it.
He can get insurance because it's going to cost him extra, and then someone said, well, it's the cost of doing business, and yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. If he wants to make money, you got to spend a little.
Okay.
I have no idea what it would cost, he didn't say.
Anyway, thanks for bringing those things up. And you have something, Larry?
I have one more thing. I don't know how many of you have been tracking the progress with the committee down in Little Rock. I'm trying to find my stuff. I don't know where it went. Put it in the wrong place. Anyway, there's a committee down there of city, county, and local governments that have been working on a bypass at the behest of a number of STR owners in Bella Vista and legislators from the area that apparently are responding to builders and others to take away the authority of local governments in regulating things that are happening in local communities. It was passed out of committee this morning. If you go on the state's website for the Senate, you can look at the recorded version of that hearing. It was about an hour and a half long this morning. I didn't get to look at it. I had some other activities that were taking my time, so. But you can go back and look at it. There was a lot of putting Bella Vista down by those who spoke. There were some that spoke in favor of Bella Vista in support of it. I know there were emails that went from residents in Bella Vista both for and against the matter. I think in the real part, what they are actually doing is taking away our local control, and observation is that the rule that was passed, they go back in the preambles of that bill, SB 197. In the preamble, they go back to the Arkansas Constitution and recite a couple of things out of there. I don't think they looked at the whole thing, but my response to it is that they say that the Arkansas Constitution says Arkansans have constitutional right to use their property without intrusion of the government. And that's a true statement, and it's great, except that when that use intrudes upon the rights of other citizens, then they've gone too far. And the U.S. Constitution says is that everyone has equal rights of the citizens, but their rights stop when they begin to infringe upon their neighbors' rights. So they have rights, but they can't infringe upon their neighbors' rights. Their neighbors have rights too. And I think that their preamble fails to observe that factor that's in the U.S. Constitution. So anyway, it's passed out of committee, so it goes to the floor, and there'll be a vote, I don't know, a couple of days, maybe
I
a week.
don't know, I haven't seen
How fast it'll move.
the floor agenda, but it'll be soon, and then it'll move over to the House.
My request to the mayor and to fellow council members is that we put a resolution in our meeting that asks them to cease with the bill and interference with local governance. And I talked with Attorney Kelly before the meeting about it. He had some flowery language that sounded good, that we would probably find to be favorable in adopting. I don't know how my fellow councilmen feel about this issue, but you need to become educated in it because it's a critical factor, taking away our authority to manage our business in the local community. And unfortunately, our friends at the League of Municipalities, I don't think quite have a good grasp on really the length and breadth of the impact from what it sounds. just may not have their arms all around the issue clearly enough to represent us. I would like to ask for a resolution on Monday night's meeting.
So I'll draft one, and then we'll put it on the agenda, and then, of course, it'll be up to the council whether they want to pass it or not. Basically, it would be, just to clarify, just referencing the current bill, which would restrict the city's ability to deal with short-term rentals, and that we would oppose passage of that because of the taking away of local control, and that local government is best to deal with local issues and things like that. I'm not, am I reaching the point you're wanting to make? Okay.
Yeah. I think it's probably too late. Should have
It
been.
hasn't gone to the desk of the governor yet.
Should have been.
Well, it hasn't gone to the House yet. It's
Should've been.
two chambers.
Should have been done some time ago.
I'll put something together for you, and
Thank you.
then y'all can debate it.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Other than that, we're adjourned. I'll see you next Monday at 6:30 PM.
What happened on the veterans wall?
You may, I may not.
What happened on the veterans wall?
We did that
We
first.
talked that before you came.